Hello, my name is Arielle, and today we're going to be talking about Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory by Doughty. If you don't know who Doughty is, like I didn't a few days ago, she is a YouTuber, and that's where I found her. She has a segment called Ask a Mortician, and after finding her videos and going down the rabbit hole, I found out she actually has 3 books. So I went ahead and picked up her first one. It's a memoir. It's also my first nonfiction book for the year. Yes, I don't read a lot of those. I give myself a goal of like one nonfiction book a month, and that never happens. I never make it, but like one down. Yeah. So this book is about her time when she started in the funeral industry until I believe it was about 6 years later, and all the things that she did throughout that time. Now, one of the biggest themes in this book is about how Western culture sees death and how we are so detached from death and just are generally terrified of it, and because we don't see it. When other cultures, when they have someone who passes away, they take care of their bodies, wash them, dress them, just generally take care of them. In Western cultures, we have someone else take them away, and then we don't see them other than a viewing or something like that. And she has a very death positive vibe on how, maybe we should bring some of those things back and care for our own dead and just be generally knowledgeable about what happens to you, or your body, or someone you love's body after you die or they die. She goes through things in very graphic detail, and as someone who had an aversion to talking about things that had to do with death, when I got into this book, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But you know what? There was a few things I already knew about, because I had worked in I worked in a job where I did see quite a few people who were deceased, and there was a lot that I didn't know. So she goes through parts where she talks about, explains cremation, embalming. There's a thing called witness cremation where you can actually go and be a part of that with your loved one, which I actually think is really beautiful. She actually goes through with how you would handle, let's say, a baby or a young child's body, or a very obese person's body. We also learn a lot about Caitlin and how she felt about death before and after, and her coming to peace with her own mortality. And that's one thing that she really promotes is, accepting and sort of relishing in the fact that you are mortal. You will die. And one thing that she says several times in the book is that our driving force in life to create, to do better, to be seen, to be heard, is the fact that we are going to die one day. Another thing she talks about is how much money the funeral industry makes and how a lot of it is excess that's not needed. She tells you what the laws are and what your rights are, and stuff that a lot of people just don't know because it's not something we talk about. And they make a lot of money. She calls it the Disneyland of graveyards, or Disneyland of the dead. She didn't use that, but that's what I'm going to call it. It's basically a giant graveyard, which is beautiful, and there's no headstones and there's no sign of death, but it's a beautiful place to rest. She talks about prices of coffins and other grandiose things that you don't necessarily need. We also get to know her as we talk about love and loss, and she talks about all this, and it is very serious, but it is very funny. This book is very macabre, but also very whimsical, and you can really hear her in your head when reading this. Her personality comes through on the page 100%. I really enjoyed this book. After reading this book, it really made me think about what I want or what my family might want. And, that actually brings me a weird form of peace, if that makes any sense. I'm not saying I'm not afraid to die, because that's not true. But I did get a lot out of it. I gave this book 4 stars, and I would have given it 5. It's more like a 4.5, but the only reason I didn't is because I had seen almost all of her videos at that point. It was just a little bit repetitive, but that shouldn't even matter. I'm going to change it to 5. I'm going to read you a few little excerpts from the book. I did read it on my Kindle, so I do have actually highlights, and I think they're probably on Goodreads, so you could probably look at them there if you wanted to. Death might appear to destroy the meaning of our lives, but in fact it is the very source of our creativity. As Kafka said, the meaning of life is that it ends. Death is the engine that keeps us running, gives us the motivation to achieve, learn, and love. Buddha says thoughts are like droplets of water on the brain. When you reinforce the same thought, it will etch a new stream into your consciousness, like water eroding the side of a mountain. And in the end, in the acknowledgement, she actually mentions some of her friends that she worked with at what she calls Westwind. And I'd like to read this to you because it made me smile, like the stupidest, goofiest smile, because when you have people in your life that literally leave a thumbprint on you that just makes you who you are, and these people helped her with that. Finally, the men who ushered me into the death industry and taught me how to be an ethical, hardworking funeral director, Michael Tom, Chris Reynolds, Bruce Williams, and Jason Bruce. To be honest, it wasn't until I was out in the cold, harsh death world that I realized how good I had it at the safe, professional, well-run funeral home I've called Westwind. But last but not least, side note, this is something that actually I was like, oh my god, I have one of these. At the very end of the book, they talk about these little fingerprint necklaces where, I don't know how well you can see that because of the light, but it's just this little fingerprint. And when my aunt passed away, my father gave it to me, and it's all I have left of her, and I treasure it. So that's something that they do offer, and yes, it is something that helps the funeral industry make more money, but I love mine. So I hope that if this is something that interests you, that you go ahead and read it, and if it's something that doesn't interest you, don't. But I will recommend, if death and things like that scare the living shiz out of you, give it a go. Bye.